Welcome to the Enrichment Today Podcast, hosted by Dr. Amy Blansett in the Drew Lewis Foundation. This podcast covers topics to improve stability and find tranquility in your life. Join us as we discuss topics to improve your financial health, change your limiting beliefs, increase your wellness, and so much more. If you like Enrichment Today, make sure to follow the Drew Lewis Foundation and Enrichment Today on social media. Now sit back, relax, and learn to break some crayons with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Holly Melton, and I am with the Drew Lewis Foundation. This is our podcast, Enrichment Today, and I am really glad to have you join us. We have one of my favorite programs represented today. It is Foster, Adopt, Connect, and I have the Executive Director for Springfield joining us, Brandi VanAntwerp. And Brandi and I met in December for the first time, and just by the name Foster, Adopt, Connect, I knew that the organization was something that would come to have special meaning to me. So talking with Brandi and learning more about what they do and how they help our youth in Springfield was incredibly enlightening, to say the least. So today we're going to find out more about the Foster, Adopt, Connect organization and how we as a community can support them. So Brandi, I'm glad you're here today. So tell us a little bit about the organization, how you got involved, and how the mission just became something that touched you and has obviously been a big factor in your life.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You're
Very
welcome.
kind of you. So Foster Adopt Connect has been in Springfield for a little over 8 years. We have been an agency out of Independence, Missouri, where we're headquartered since 1999. So we're a little bit more mature up near Kansas City. But here in the Springfield area, we serve a 15-county service area. And the organization has 11 different programs that serve anywhere from 0 to 26 years old youth and the families that work with them. So that can look like anything from foster, adoptive, kinship, guardianship families. That can be biological families to help prevent their families from having children enter the foster care system, as well as youth who have been touched by the system and who may not necessarily be in foster care any longer, but they're still surviving the impacts of foster care, and who are trying to reach sustainability and really age into adulthood through a mentorship program that we offer. So I came to Foster Adopt Connect in September of 2021 as the executive director. I was drawn to it because I myself am adopted. My biological father and my mother had me at a very young age. My mom was 17 when she had me, and my biological father was not safe. He was harmful to my mother and eventually to me, and so my mother was able to flee the situation thanks to a really great support group. And while my mother was a teenager, she maintained her parental guardianship over me and was able to raise me. And she's my best friend. But my mother, when I was 3, remarried, and at 4, I was adopted by the man I call my dad. So I'm not fully adopted, but I tell people jokingly I'm half adopted. So it's always been a big piece of my life, though. The family of my adopted dad, who have surrounded me for my entire life and treat me, just as well as my sister or my cousins. They treat me like just a part of the family, as it should be. So it's made a big impact on my life to see the love that can be extended to others through adoption. So our agency, though, I think part of why you wanted to talk today was about the Youth Connect Center. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When Brandi explained a part of this program to me, it was around Christmas time. And there was a particular story that she shared about a young man in one of our local high schools. And I'll let you tell the story because I want to make sure I don't overstep and say the wrong thing. So I'm going to let you tell the story, but it has had an impact and will have an impact on my life from here forward. So
yeah, the young man is in high school here in Springfield and is adopted. His adoptive parents have this young person and a sibling. And the mother passed away in the last year, and the adoptive father was no longer able to keep the young man in his household. And I can't speak for him. I can't speak for the situation that he is in, but he had kicked the young man out of the home, and the young man was still trying to actively be a student in high school here in town. The community reached out to us at Foster Adopt Connect to see what we could do to support him. The young man is involved in sports and needed new shoes as he was growing. He needed, of course, sheltering. He needed food. He needed clothing. And, of course, just support. Mm-hmm. So a couple of the families that knew him best were able to help him find a housing situation with some trusted, friends and family. And we were able to then come in and resource around those needs that he had, because we have so many programs. Either we have a clothing and food bank, for example, so we can go out and ensure that we're clothing youth and we're getting them new shoes, working with other local companies to see who could help him with shoes, for example. And the family that had reached out to us for help while we were trying to find a local company, we had mutually talked about Fleet Feet, for example. Mm-hmm. That family had said, you know what, we'll just go ahead and go to a shoe store and buy him good running shoes. So they got that piece covered. But there are just so many needs that he had and he'll continue to have, and we'll be there to support him.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of how many kiddos do you serve in a year?
But in the 15 county service area, depending on the program, but like with Sammy's Window, for example, we're serving over 2,000 families. So the Greene County service area alone with Children's Division typically has about 750 kids in care at any given time. Kids remain in care. It depends on the case, of course, but many cases can last a year to 2 years when a child is still in the state's custody. So it just depends on, some youth we might get to help 2 or 3 times, and some we help for years and years. Mm-hmm. Like our Sammy's Window clothing bank, for example, once they've been in the system and they've, if they've been adopted officially out of foster care, we'll continue to provide those clothes and shoes and the food and hygiene needs that they have every month.
So tell me, what is the mission and how? I feel like I made you jump right into one story of one individual, but there's a process and a method to how you handle kiddos and what you do specifically to help the different age range, because you said 0 to 26? Mm-hmm. Holy cow. So tell me a little bit more. What is the mission specifically? And then what programs do you connect with? And what's the heart of what you do on a daily basis?
Well, our founder is Lori Ross, and she's still our active CEO in Independence, Missouri. And Lori and her husband became they were registered foster parents at a very young age. And so she's in her mid to late 50s, somewhere in that range. And she and her husband have been fostering for 25 to 30 years. So they have had in their home over 300 foster youth.
Oh, wow.
They have children that they have adopted from foster care, numerous children, plus a few bio children that they've birthed themselves. So to see her passion, to see her willingness to resource around agencies. So kind of the nucleus of the child foster care system or the child welfare system is Children's Division. It's the police department. It's those who, like police department coming into an active situation and determining if a youth needs to be removed from care. And then the Children's Division staff taking that child and figuring out where that child will go in the foster care system. And the juvenile office that's working with youth that have been engaged in maybe at-risk behaviors. So there are this core group of essentially state-funded programs. And then there are so many programs that sort of serve that core group and try to fill in the gaps. And that's really where Foster Adopt Connect has been able to be agile. We've been able to be sort of entrepreneurial in what we do. And that's where a lot of our programs have continued to expand, or we've added new programs because we can be responsive to the needs. And so we're not tied to necessarily the programming that's at the core. We're able to then say, okay, what are the gaps? What are the barriers? So really our agency's purpose is to work with any child that's been in care or that's basically abused or neglected, to help them work through those traumas, to help the family members, the friends, the whatever that makeup looks like that's supporting that youth, we're supporting those adults too. So that's really our purpose.
So you have a clothing bank, you have a food bank.
Yes.
Do you offer mental health services?
We do. We have a clinician on staff.
Oh, wow.
We are in the next month opening up a program for referrals for our Youth Acceptance Project, which works to help families who have youth who are in the LGBTQ plus community to assist those families in understanding and supporting their youth, to ensure that those families don't become separated from one another. So we don't have more youth coming into the foster care system, or who are at least traumatized by the reactions that sometimes can occur when their family members are aware. We do have a behavioral intervention program, so we can work with bio families who have children who are at risk. We can work with foster or adoptive or kinship families that have a child that has behavioral needs. So there's an assessment that's done on that youth, and their score needs to be at a relatively high score for us to understand that it's beyond your typical age and stage behaviors.
Right.
And if they are at just a typical age and stage behavior, then our team will softly redirect them to other resources that could assist. But if that child's behaviors are disruptive to their educational opportunities, they're getting kicked out of school often, they're unsafe physically with themselves or with their loved ones in the home, we can come in and we have staff that actually work in the home with them. They can transport them to, say, a grocery store. They can go into the school if the school allows that behavioral interventionist to come in, and they'll work with that youth on behaviors, understanding their emotions, and then how to kind of course correct in another terminology, right? So we're never implying to the youth that obviously there's an area for improvement, but we do it in such a trauma-informed manner that it's never disciplinary for that youth. And so the most important piece of that behavioral interventionist's program is they are not only learning as a behavioral interventionist and the child how to work better together, but also for the caregiver to know how to work with that child. So it's all about everyone in the room better understanding a trauma-informed approach to bring that youth along, to help those behaviors kind of gently and slowly maybe work themselves out.
Yeah, I think the key word there is the trauma-induced behaviors. I think that's what we see that people assume are just kids really out of control, and there's trauma behind that, and that's what has to be uncovered and worked with. So how present are you in the schools? Are the schools working with you quite a bit?
Some districts were able to get our behavioral interventionists into the schools. Some we are trying to work on an MOU to be able to go into the schools with them. About 2 months ago, we had all of SPS and their school-based counselor group and behavioral group come in to tour our facilities. Nice. They were so engaged in that meeting. We had 35 staff that came along with us who asked the best questions, all had a wide variety of referral opportunities for us, whether it was something to do with our clothing needs, or whether it was someone needing behavioral interventionist referrals, or clinical help that they maybe identified for a family, especially prevention services, because they can see families at risk who perhaps are heading down the route of getting a hotline. And if we could step in and work with that parent group of nurturing parenting curriculum, which is an evidence-based curriculum that we use.
I love that.
We need that household to be willing to engage in that curriculum with us. And then we can walk alongside them to identify other needs that they may have, whether it be mental health needs. Maybe they have housing insecurity. Maybe they have food insecurity. Maybe it's a cleanliness concern, which we've definitely... Our staff have responded to homes where we've brought other staff along to assist a family in showing them ways to make their home cleaner so they don't get another hotline, or ways to maintain that child in their home through cleanliness techniques.
And I think that you made a very valid point. I don't think it's sometimes a situation where people don't want to take care of their kids and their home and their family. Right. They want to, but they've never been given the life skills, shown those life skills. And just something we're learning is like with financial literacy, it's understanding how to do something, how to make that change. And that little bit of education goes so far. I think that's something that we really have to keep in mind as a community.
Yes.
That it's not, people aren't out there doing bad things. They need to be educated and taught and have a different mindset. And because they want their kids, they want a life,
Yes.
Something that you told me that resonates with me too, I found fascinating, is that when you have kiddos that are aging out of foster care, my understanding is you can go onto some of these genealogical websites and hopefully find somebody that may be within the family network. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that's our Extreme Family Finding program. And what we do is we know that there are many cases for youth where they are either aging out or they are, the case termination is coming. So basically, the court is about to say we're terminating parental rights and someone needs to take full custody of this child. So when that occurs, the foster family where a child is placed is often asked, would that be an opportunity for you? If for some reason the foster family says, I'm sorry, we wouldn't be able to take this child permanently, and they're always looking for family, so then they're going to be asking family members. But sometimes with case managers, they have more cases than they really should have. And I know that the state's working on that staffing issue of trying to staff more caseworkers so that the caseloads aren't overburdening the staff. But we can come in with our team and actually help them with family finding. And so we have an investigator who's a retired police officer, and Joe goes in and he makes phone calls. And so he'll start with parents and then grandparents and aunts and uncles, and even like, say, mom's best friend, for example, or a church youth group leader, whoever it is. So our goal is to get around 250 different individuals who have some tie-in to that youth for us to then find potential placements for that youth. And we may find 2 or 3 or 4 that once we do investigations and we can see they have a clean record, they'd be eligible for taking placement of the child, we can then recommend them to the team. So the guardian ad litem, the caseworker, the attorney for the parents, etc., that group that's meeting every month in regards to that child and their permanency and their safety can then review those opportunities to say, maybe we're comfortable with that person that was identified. So, maybe it was mom's best friend, or maybe it was dad's second cousin who never knew dad had kids. But here they are, and they live 20 minutes outside of Springfield, and they're willing to take those children into their care. So that's a really interesting piece of work that we do, and we do build those genealogy, those trees, right? Yeah. And we have a really cool kind of reference one that's printed in our office that, I don't know, it's just really neat to see it on paper and to really see the impact that it makes, all of the investigative work that Joe does to help us.
Oh my gosh. Do you, does your organization work more with people who come and volunteer, or is it more employees? Are volunteers even as big? What's the right word there? Volunteers are so important, but it's really easy to get busy when you're a volunteer and not be able to make certain things happen.
Yes.
So we understand the need to have employees. So I wasn't sure, where does your staff fall? Is it more volunteer-based? Is it more employee-based?
More employee-based. Our volunteers at times, so they'd have to go through a federal background check in order to work with our youth. And so many of our programs, they would have interaction with youth. We do have some volunteers who have gone through the full background check. And that way we can have them come into the Youth Connect Center on a Tuesday night from 3 to 8 and help serve dinner or interact with our youth. So if they're working, let's say, in our clothing bank, they aren't necessarily going to be interacting funding.
Right.
And so we get the majority of our volunteers over there. We do have a few who end up sitting. We have one incredible lady who sits in the front desk one day every 2 weeks. And she answers phones and transfers calls and lets people in the door. And that's a huge help to us as well, because then our office manager can step away and get other things done.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the nature of their interest and where we can maybe get them placed so they can fulfill their desired help and also help us out in ways that we can.
You really need it. So my next question is, I want to have an idea of what the process looks like. Do you get calls from different organizations that say, hey, we need your help? Do you have kiddos come into your building off the street? I mean, what is, probably both?
Yes, depending on the program. But for the Youth Connect Center, we're down on McDaniel. And so we're right by the Moxie and the Sub Shop and like Springfield Brew Co. and Hudson Hawker right there. So we do have a lot of youth that come in off the street. We opened that space on October 17th. And so we've been open now over 90 days, and we've seen 92 youth, non-duplicated youth that have come through the door. We sometimes will have, just a whole new group that comes in one night. We'll have one that will come in and get to know us and feel comfortable in our space and bring friends the next time. So we've now done cold weather crisis sheltering there, and we're able to take them through, essentially through the collaborative that does cold weather crisis sheltering. If they were to be alerted to a youth that is in our age range for sheltering. So we can basically at that shelter take 13 to 18-year-old youth.
Okay.
If a family unit came together and needed sheltering one night and they had a youth between 13 and 15, we would need them to sign an authorization form, and their youth would be bused from, let's say Grace, for example, over to us, and they would shelter with us from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., and then we would get them transported back over to Grace to where their family was sheltered that night. So a lot of shelters in town aren't able to take youth, and that's where we knew this gap existed. And so we've kind of created this program over several years to be able to help those kids in that age group that weren't otherwise able to have a space to stay warm.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea that that was the case. So you've really worked hard to identify what the kids need in this community, especially the kiddos that are just living on the streets.
Yes, that was a collaborative of folks that came together about 4.5 years ago now. It's funny, after COVID, you forget how many years have passed. But about 4.5 years ago, there was a large group of nonprofits that came together, and they said, Isabel's House is able to shelter and help youth 0 to 12. Rare Breeds programming really picks up at 18 and older to be able to bring them in and do case management with them and allow them into the full space of their buildings. So Community Foundation of the Ozarks said, before this kind of age range discussion even, we know there's a gap. And so they funded an assessment to be done by the community. And out of that assessment came the decision that, yes, there is a gap. So 0 to 12 is being resourced, and 18 and older, that 13 to 18 range, they're able to get food, or they're able to get things here and there, but they can't get case management. So that's where the community then said, between CFO, CPO, ourselves, hospitals, schools all came together, and we were asking ourselves, who can take this program on? Is it a new nonprofit to be formed? Is it a nonprofit that exists that can do it? And we were able to get state funding to open up the Youth Connect Center. And so we do our 3 to 8 p.m. is kind of our drop-in hours. And that's really our goal of youth can come in after school is out. And that gives them a place to go. Hopefully, if they're not engaged in school, we have one young man who very recently said, I think I'm ready to go back to school. And we got him re-enrolled at SPS.
Nice.
So that's definitely a big domain for us of ensuring these youth have their education on top of safe sheltering and, meeting their basic needs. But I lost my train of thought here, but the idea was that 3 to 8 p.m., but youth can come in from 12 to 3 if they need us to help them enroll in school, or if they need us to help them, seek out mental or physical health needs. So we can help them set up appointments and bring other resources in to sit and meet with them. 3 to 8 is kind of social. A lot of the kids get in there and they gather, they make puzzles, they love coloring books. We have video games they can play together, and then we just turn on the TV or watch shows. We had one young man who comes in often, and he had to, the next night when he got there, watch the groundhog. It was Groundhog Day, and he's like, I really want to see the whole video. Can we go back and watch it? And the staff said, of course.
The movie?
No, like this year's little, Puxatawny Phil coming out and deciding, is it spring or is it, he needed to see it. So they made sure, yes, when you come in, we'll show it to you.
I love that.
But they serve a hot meal every night right around 5 o'clock, and resourcing. And then we typically close at 8. Unless it's a cold weather crisis night, then we stay open and have space, I should say, for 8 youth to shelter there overnight.
8. Oh my gosh, 8 out of how many?
Yes.
So what's considered a cold weather crisis?
So under 32 degrees. So just like the way the CPO Collaborative has done the cold weather crisis sheltering, any night that it's under 32 degrees, we are able to open up, and we have our permitting from the city to be able to shelter youth in those evenings. Our dream is to move beyond cold weather crisis permitting now, and to get a full conditional use permit once cold weather crisis timeline is over, for us to then year round be able to provide those shelter nights. And we're hiring staff. We have one full-time and one part-time, and we're still hiring for another part and another full to be able to do those overnight shelters. So currently our staff have been filling in, have been going and working overnight shifts. Like I've worked a few myself, just to make sure we had staff there overnight. So we need to be background checked. We need to have our first CPR first aid certification. And of course that kind of, narrows it down to our staff. We can't really open it up to volunteers yet.
Yeah, I understand that. Wow, that is remarkable. So right now, some of the needs that you're facing are definitely clothes, warm clothes for
Absolutely.
The clothing bank. Are there any particular sizes that you're...
Adult. I know when people think of 13 to 18-year-olds, they don't always know what sizes to get, but we do have we have a lot of young men. For whatever reason, we tend to have more young men than we do young women coming in. And those young men are, men's size large. We have some that are, into the 2XL and some mediums, but we kind of run that gamut of adult sizes that we need.
That's good to know. And then probably like socks and underwear,
yes.
and soap and things that they can take with them as well, like wet wipes and, different things like that are easier to take care of yourself if you don't have running water.
Exactly.
And then food, I'm sure. So you mentioned you have a food pantry. So items that the kids can take.
Yes. Which they can take as much as they want anytime they walk in the door, and we don't limit what they can take.
Okay.
We've had a youth, for example, there were 2 young men who were in one night, and one was like stuffing his pockets with popcorn bags. And our staff said, hey, let me grab a bag for you. Just go ahead and put as many as you want in a bag. And they were a little confused. And so our staff just said, it's okay. You can take whatever amount you want. And they admitted they had a cousin that they were going to be taking some of the food to, and that the cousin loved popcorn. So we try not to put any limitations on it. We want them to be able to help others as they, maybe the cousin isn't ready to come in yet and see us, but would be an eligible client for us as well. So yes, the food, a lot of those kind of easy to take, easy to open types of containers. And then hot hands are great this time of year.
That's a great one.
And we, like you said, hygiene or period products are very helpful.
Okay.
So those are kind of our areas of need right now.
Anything warm, like blankets, sleeping bags.
Yes.
And then, so you mentioned also the hot meal. Do do you have organizations that provide that? Do you need those
We're
provided?
always looking for those. So churches are kind of coming on board. We have a few who are saying like, one Wednesday a month we can bring you a hot meal.
Okay.
Or we're looking for others to sign up. We have a Give in Kind page that people can go on and they can register. Okay. We serve about 15. We plan for 15 plates a night, 15 youth that are going to be in the space that night for us to feed. So it just kind of varies, but that's usually a good average to count on. Okay. And it can be a taco bar, it can be a hot potato bar, it can be, we have folks who bring in chili or lasagna. It kind of runs the gamut. They love breakfast for dinner. Oh, that's always a good one.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's good to know. Hot food, or at least funding, so you could go buy the hot food for at least 15 kids. And then clothing of all types, socks, underwear, outerwear, larger sizes, not necessarily little. Hygiene products. So what about things like bags, and do you need extra shopping bags and things for kids to take with them? And
shopping bags are wonderful. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
We do have a stock, but we'll run through them
pretty quickly. I love this. I love this program, and I'm so grateful that you're there. I hate that there's a reason you have to be there.
Us too.
But I'm really, really grateful to know that it's there. Years ago, I remember taking food over to Rare Breed, and just I had no idea. We live in Springfield, and we have this idea we're very, very sheltered from what larger cities experience, and yet we have many of those same needs right here, and they just don't get quite the coverage, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because we have to be aware of how we can help our kids. That's how we're going to help our future.
That's right.
So Foster Adopt Connect, tell me the best way for people to get a hold of Foster Adopt Connect to donate.
FosterAdopt.org is our website.
Okay, FosterAdopt.org. And Sarah's so good about putting those contacts in the video part of this, but for the audio part, again, it's FosterAdopt.org. And is there a phone number? Or
yes, 417-866-3672.
Okay, 866-3672. All right, make sure you get that 417 part in there. And if there's a kiddo listening and they need help, what can they do?
They can call us. They can identify their need to a trusted adult, say school counselor, teacher, anyone that they're around if they need assistance. Our staff would be there to help get any resource needed for them and get them into a safe space. If they are downtown and able to get to our space, we're at 425 West McDaniel, Suite 160, and the doors have the YCC logo on them.
Okay, 425 West McDaniel. And you said that's near Moxie?
Yep, just down the way.
Okay, and it has YCC on the door. Okay, so if you are listening and you need help, or you know somebody that needs help, please, that's what they're there for. Okay, thank you so much.
This has been
an incredible help. And I just, like I said, I love that this resource is here. I hate that we have to have it, but we are really blessed that there is somebody to fill the gap. That's what we need more of. So if you have time to volunteer, let them know as well. And I can't wait to see, as much as I don't want to see it grow, I want to see you grow. I wish we could get rid of the need, and wouldn't that be nice if we all had magic wands and nonprofit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
One of these days. But thank you. And thank you all for tuning in to Enrichment Today. I hope that you have been as touched as I was about Foster Adopt Connect, and reach out to them to donate food, donate clothing, whatever it is that you can help out. Thank you. Have a great day.